Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com, where we are rejoined by brother, family member of this podcast, Mr. Logan Paulsen. How are you doing on this fantastic and glorious Monday, sir?
I mean, I'm enjoying the weather, I'll tell you that.
I think we all are, and myself included, sir.
You're looking tan.
I've only been here for 2 days, by the way, so I'm not that tan, but
not you, Logan.
Yeah, I've been coaching football, been out in the sun a little bit. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm allergic to it, apparently.
Yes. And Logan, the first thing I have to ask you, the Commanders were fined $100,000 from the NFL for excessive contact. Can you kind of explain that for us? How does that come into fruition? Because apparently, isn't minicamp just supposed to be? You're not, like, the Bengals aren't even wearing helmets. So how does this come about?
Yeah, so basically there's a couple different schools of thought on minicamp and on OTAs, quite frankly, is, you want to kind of push that envelope in terms of velocity of play as far as you can, I think. That's at least how I always came up with Mike Shanahan. He's like, this is like a full speed walkthrough is the way he used to describe it. So you'd be sprinting to spots, receivers run full speed routes. And then the idea is that the defense is going to take care of the receiver. They're not going to like break up the ball in the air, but the offensive line, like you get some good contacts. It's imagine as fast as you could go without shoulder pads. Like you are being very physical. Like I remember leaving practice and my chest would be all bruised up. I'd have face masks on my, face mask marks on my shoulders. Like I was going about as hard as I could go. And if you would have I at the time, I'd say I was going full speed. And that's how I practice. That's how the old linemen practice. And obviously things have changed a little bit under the new CBA, but that period of my career, I played under the new CBA. So I think it's awesome when guys really take that time and really push themselves. And from a technique standpoint, obviously there's certain things you don't want to do. You don't want to be bullying offensive linemen at that period because like if they fall into the quarterback, that's bad news bears. But it's got good tempo. So when you get those fines, I think it's just because teams they're walking the line. Baltimore gets fined almost every single year because I've got a couple coaching buddies over there and it's basically full speed in their eyes. Like they're not tackling to the ground, but it's everything but. So again, it's kind of when it depends on the rep that comes. It depends on their perspective of the drills. It depends on the context that they're seeing. So I'm not surprised by that because like every team, in my opinion, should be doing that or should be pushing that line as far as they can. And I think it's just unfortunate that Ron got such a big fine and that, they miss a couple of days of practice for next year, which is too bad because I know other teams practice in a very similar manner. So.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of fines, before we bury this into the dirt forever, obviously Jack Del Rio had some comments. We're not going to get into that, but as a locker room, when something like that happens, how do locker rooms in the NFL tend to respond to that?
I was trying to think like this is the first time I think in my career and then my time covering the team that I've heard of a coordinator coming out and kind of so just demonstratively giving their stance, their political stance. So that's a little unusual, obviously. But, for most of the time, like the locker room tends to be pretty apolitical. I'm sure some guys were irritated by those comments, but, there's a lot of money being floated around. There's a lot of opportunity, for guys to kind of have generational wealth added to their thing. You're not going to make too many waves over that in that situation. And you're going to be pros about it. You're going to be men. You're going to go talk to Jack if you have an issue, or you're going to go talk to John Allen and say, John, can you talk to Jack for me? And, Jack made an apology to the team, which is totally appropriate. And then the guys are going to move on. Like, that's just how it goes. Like they have other goals, other things they're thinking about. And, that's not that's ideally Jack wouldn't have said anything, because now we're talking about it. But I think ultimately the team's going to digest this and handle this really well. And it's going to be not an issue going into the season.
Right. And now let's jump onto the field, talk a little ball.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of things have kind of been standing out in minicamp OTAs. Obviously Carson Wentz, and everyone's been talking about his arm. I know the 11-on-11, some of the clips they've shown on Twitter, there's been a lot of stuff going deep, like down the field stuff. In your estimation, with the way the roster is constructed right now, what do you think the philosophy and kind of the best way they should have run the offense to kind of put points on the board and win games?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think obviously it depends a lot on Terry McLaurin and his status and whether he's back with the team, because I think that's a pretty formidable group in terms of receivers. You know, I don't think there's like an elite name in there, but I think Terry's an excellent football player. Jahan showed a tremendous skill set during the OTA period. Now he's still got to put pads on. He's still got to execute when it gets a little bit more physical, preseason lights are on, all those different things. But I was very, very impressed with him during the OTA period and even in the minicamp as well. And then obviously Curtis Samuels had a very nice OTA period. Didn't practice in minicamp because an abundance of caution, I believe was the quote. But that group is very formidable. So I think you want to get those guys as involved as you possibly can. I think you want to, like, I'm trying to think back. I don't think Carson Wentz has played with a group of playmakers like this since his rookie year. Would be the only comparison. And I think that bodes well. So I think you want to get those guys on the field as much as you can, let Carson distribute the football to them, find ways to make easy decisions and easy throws. And that's always helpful when you got guys who can get open, who understand route stems and understand route nuance the way Terry, the way Jahan has shown. And, having a playmaker like Curtis who can kind of be your Debo Samuel light, I think is the way I would go with this. And, Scott is a disciple of his father's offense, which is that Air Coryell offense. They want to push the ball down the field. I think they show that they're ready to do that a little bit more moving forward. And it just depends on whether they can hold them in protection at this point. I think I talked a little bit about this with you guys off the air. And one of the things that kind of stuck out about minicamp is that the defense was able to create a ton of pressure and really unsettle the offense. And that was a big question going in. And obviously they're working different things. It looked like the offense was working empty and that the defense is working empty pressures, and obviously that tends to favor the defense. But I do think that is something to keep an eye on in terms of protection. And can they execute this more vertical passing game, even though they've got these tremendous playmakers?
Did you see Scott Turner deadlift?
I haven't seen him deadlift. No, is it good? Is it worth it?
It was pretty impressive. Yeah,
Somebody
even Bleacher Report
commented on
posted
it and
it.
said he looks like he's about to throw his back out. I'm not sure if I agree with him because I'm not like a power lifter. I have no idea. You know what I'm saying, Logan?
Yeah.
But that being said, you just alluded to it, and my question to you is going to be, we were at OTAs, but we obviously were not at minicamp, and you were able to be at minicamp. Was there anything that jumped off to you, that insightful, that you noticed a difference between OTAs and minicamp, maybe by a player perspective?
Yeah, I mean, OTAs and minicamp are almost identical in terms of practice structure. So if you were going to one and didn't know which one was which, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference. I will say that from a player standpoint, obviously Carson Wentz looked about as good as you can look during the OTA period. I was trying to think back to my time with, guys like, the quarterbacks that I played with here in Washington, guys like Matt Ryan in Atlanta, Jimmy G in San Francisco. And I can't remember an OTA period where someone played at such a high level, to be quite frank. He was very, very on it. Then he came back to earth a little bit, honestly, in the minicamp. Had a rougher stretch there, and I think
that's Carson.
Yeah, a little bit of a rough stretch there, but that's kind of to be expected. Nobody's perfect every single day, and some days the advantage is tilted for the defense. That's the goal. That's the objective of the practice, is to kind of see how the offense handles some very stressful situations. And, obviously, like you'd rather those things happen now as opposed to happen, even in training camp or preseason or in season, right? Because you can kind of start game planning and thinking and problem solving those issues and putting yourself and your offense in the best position to be successul. So,
right. Yeah. Now, one player that a lot of people have talked about has been Benjamin St-Juste. Of course, he's playing a new position. He's playing inside, playing in the slot, kind of that nickel role. A lot of people are questioning that, saying that it's odd to see somebody that long, and you don't really see that, I guess, but I feel like him being able to use his length inside would be good. What have you seen from him so far?
I mean, he's been outstanding. I think, it was probably the first, let's say 4 or 5 practices where they were kind of messing around with parts. Like Cam was playing the nickel, Forrest was playing the safety, McCain was playing the safety, and it didn't look quite right. I think Forrest is a guy who's going to flash when they put the pads on. He's got a nice physical urgency to his game, but he seemed to be struggling with matching some of the pass concepts. He's a second-year player, didn't play a lot in his rookie year, so that's probably to be expected. But once they moved Benjamin St-Juste into that nickel spot full time, Cam Crow's playing safety, Bobby McCain's playing safety, the whole defense got better. I kind of mentioned this off the air to you, but like the first probably 4 or 5 days of OTA, it was the offense all the way. They looked very, very sharp. And I was starting to get concerned about the defense, quite frankly. And they made that transition to Benjamin St-Juste, the nickel, and the playing field kind of leveled. And I'm not saying it's because Benjamin St-Juste is there, but it's because you get Bobby McCain and Curl in the post, And quite frankly, Benjamin St-Juste did an excellent job in the slot. Jahan Dotson was really, I'd say, almost dominant at points during this OTA period. And then he'd bump into the slot. And again, Benjamin St-Juste, everyone talks about his length, but his change of directions, outstanding for a man of his size. I thought he did a nice job fitting runs. So from a coverage standpoint, did really well. And just from like an X's and O's standpoint of knowing where you fit, I think he did an excellent job of fitting runs correctly, fitting screens correctly, showed good instincts. The thing with him that is a little alarming is obviously he had 3 concussions last year. So, right. That's a physical position, playing nickel. Like people think, oh, it's a corner, but it's really more akin to like a safety or a linebacker almost. So it'll be, I'm happy that he's doing well. I'm excited for him. But again, that's something going into training camp you want to keep an eye on if you're a fan, to make sure that his health and his play style can be sustained there.
Right. Yeah. I'm always pulling for those Canadians. Always. They're very nice people. Yeah.
So a lot of has been made about this offseason, how they didn't really add a lot to the defense. They just brought a lot of the guys that were there last year back to this defense. And obviously, what they did on offense, they kind of added a lot more pieces on offense. What do you think is going to be more kind of helpful for this team as far as, do you think that Carson Wentz in the offense or the defensive line having a bounce back year will be more impactful for this team winning games next year?
Well, I think, the quarterback's the most important position of football. And, one of the things I did, this was a project I did this weekend, was look at all the receivers around the division and try to rank them like 1 to 5. And so one of the things that came out of that was I got to watch a lot of Terry, and I got to watch a lot of Taylor Heineke. And one of the things that stood out to me is, just how impressive Terry can be, and how kind of handcuffed he was at times this year because of the timing and the lack of arm strength from Heineke. And so I think about Terry with a quarterback who's shown the proficiency that Carson Wentz has in the OTA period, and then last year with Indianapolis. And I say to myself, wow, he could be much more productive, much more dangerous within the context of this offense. So I just think what he's going to do for Terry is going to be outstanding. What he's going to do for Jahan, what he's going to do for Curtis, what he's going to do for the run game. It makes this offense an NFL offense. And as much as you want to be critical of the defense, especially early on last year, I thought they played okay moving in the second half of the season. And if they play like that and the offense takes the steps that they've shown they can take during this OTA period, like, it's going to be an interesting year for Commanders fans. Now, like, there's a whole bunch of big ifs there, lots of question marks. Can Carson sustain that level of play? Blah, 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 blah. Right. Can Curtis Samuel stay healthy? Is Jahan the real deal? I think so, but you got to see it on the field to confirm that. So again, that all comes from the quarterback. And, I'm excited to see it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and now next question I have for you, Logan, the tight end position, AGG. I've heard some rumors that he's been looking really, really good at tight end. And of the undrafted free agent tight ends that are here, of those guys, who do you think has the best chance to make this roster?
Right now, I think my horse, if I'm picking somebody, is not even a dark horse, is Curtis Hodges out of ASU. I think he's the guy that's probably got the best shot. He, over the first, I want to say 3.5 days, looked very, very good. Like, he was competing in line. Again, they don't have shoulder pads, and as much as this is a physical period without pads on, you need the pads on to play the game in the NFL, and you need to see how he reacts to that. But again, for a guy who's 6'8" and moves like that, very smooth in the hips, it was exciting to watch. And so I think he, if he's healthy through the OTA period, I think he might be potentially ahead of Cole Turner, who had an outstanding OTA period, just to give you an idea of how good both those guys did. But obviously the injury is there. Armani Rogers did an outstanding job, considering he never played the position for. Like, watching him run, you say, well, maybe this guy can play wide receiver in the NFL, and that's exciting. Again, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen with all of those guys, but at least the athletic framework is there for them. And you mentioned AGG, and AGG is a guy that I felt like, he'd have one good day, and then he'd have like 3 bad days, and then he'd have one good day. And it's enough of a good day to make to keep you on the hook. You know what I'm saying? To say, oh, I'm going to stay with this. Like, he, during the 2-minute period, the first week OTAs, and he looked really sharp with that stuff where he's basically playing big slot in the 2-minute stuff. And then he had an explosive play off of play action that same day. And you say, wow, okay, let's look for more of this. And then it's like a 6-day doldrum. And then the last day of mini camp, he mosses Cam Curl in the end zone for a touchdown. You say, where the heck has that guy been for the last 6 days? So he's done enough good stuff that you're like, okay, but he's also gone through stretches where like he's dropping the ball a ton. He's, he doesn't look overly physical in the run game. So, a lot of growing for him still, especially with those other guys who seem to be a little bit more polished at the position. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I like all of them. But I do think you're asking a lot for undrafted guys, 5th round pick, to come in and fill the shoes potentially of Logan Thomas for, a 3, 4, 5 game stretch if that ends up happening.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of leads me into my next question. What about young, thick himself, Mr. Sammis Reyes? Do you see him making this team?
Yeah, man. I mean, I talked to Sammis a little bit the other day. He's got, he's dealing with like a knee injury or like an old injury that's kind of resurfaced or whatever. And I think it's going to be tough. I think the variable there that is important to consider is that he's played NFL special teams. He's very good on special teams, and
he was a good blocker too.
Yeah, he's a good blocker. I think, you only keep usually one good blocker, but if he plays teams, then you feel good about it. So again, his ability to play teams, he's not as far along as these other guys, which is crazy to think about. Like Cole Turner, I think has some nice, I want to say elite, but I think that gets people too excited. Some very positive traits that get you excited about him as a pass catcher, which Sammis didn't show really last year. And then Curtis Hodges, again, his inline production during OTAs, no pads on again, and his ability to catch football and understand route stems and stuff, which are very kind of intricate football things, make me think that Sammis has a little bit of work to do. I think he can do it. I think he can play here. But again, like that room has gotten really crowded very quickly. I think the scouting staff has done a nice job finding guys with a lot of upside.
Yeah. And jumping back on the defensive side, a lot has been made about Cole Holcomb kind of taking over that Mike linebacker spot this year, and Jamin Davis jumping back out to the outside. What have you seen from them throughout the preseason or the off season so far? I know he said it's not pads or anything right now, so it's kind of hard to tell like how the linebackers are moving or playing maybe. But what have you seen so far? And you think that Cole is up for the challenge of playing that Mike this year?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the thing with linebacker, the thing with OTAs is the farther you are away from the ball, the more realistic the evaluation. So receivers, DBs, it's more movement based. You can kind of tell, but as you get closer to the line of scrimmage, get closer to that ball, the physicality becomes more important. And I will say Cole has shown over his time here that he's a physical human, and he's fast. It's just about the mental recognition for him. And I will say as Fedarian over the first, 5 days, 6 days of OTAs started playing better, Cole got more productive because guys weren't getting to him. He was able to run the football. Same thing with Jamin. I think as good as that D line plays is how good those linebackers are going to play. And again, like that's exciting. I think that should be exciting for fans. They are who they are as players. I think Cole can be a very good football player, but again, he's not going to outplay his supporting cast or the people around him. And so I think that bodes well because the D-line is one of the best supporting casts, if that's how you want to characterize them in the country. And the secondary is not bad either. So I think everyone should feel very confident in Cole's ability. I think Jamin's the guy where there's more question marks. I think Jamin has shown definitely more confidence this offseason, right? And everyone's talked about him in pressers and interviews, but watching him run to the football, watching him peel double teams, all that stuff, which he kind of struggled with last year, looks much better. His football IQ seems to be improving. Like I harken back to, I think it was day 9 of OTAs. He got picked really bad on the goal line for a touchdown. And like, he's athletic enough to get there, but he's just a little bit late. The next 2 days of minicamp, he recognizes the formation. He plays over the top right now, and there's no throw. And so again, like that just shows kind of a nice maturation, which you didn't see from him last year. So again, is he a Pro Bowler? No. Is he maybe a competent NFL starter at this point? Yes. And is there tremendous upside with him? Yes. So I think fans should be, again, encouraged. I don't think you should let the cart before the horse kind of thing. Like he's still got a long way to go. Still got to see if he can tackle in space, see if he can take on these blocks. He's shown, at least at this point, better qualities there in terms of his distance to the tackle, his distance to the block. But again, there's a lot of time still left, and they didn't have pads on yet. So.
Absolutely. Now, Logan, to wrap up this interview, I have a couple more questions for you. Now, after a couple weeks of seeing Jahan Dotson working in front of your eyes, do you have a different professional comparison for Jahan now?
Professional comp for Jahan. I don't know if I have a comp for Jahan, but I will say Jahan has done everything in terms of what I saw in college. He's brought it to the NFL and he's elevated it to meet the NFL standards. So after probably nine days and then minicamp, throughout the whole process, man, I'm getting like one-ish vibes, which means you can win versus multiple coverages. You can win in multiple different ways. Excellent catch radius and beating multiple different defenders. And he just did that excellent. He did an excellent job. And so, again, he hasn't played football yet, and it's, what month are we in? Yeah, it's early. So, but I was very pleased with what I saw. Again, catch radius, the hands, the dexterity, the ability to adjust football in the air. Like, he was it. He's that dude at 16, and I think you feel really good about it. I
keep hearing people say Deshaun Jackson. Like, do you agree with that?
I think in camp he had a couple like deep passes, and he has traits of Deshaun Jackson. Right. And what I mean by that is, like, when the ball's in the air, Deshaun had this ability just to like naturally accelerate to the football and then like catch it perfectly in stride. There's an element of that to Jahan's game. I think Jahan's a much more route runner than Deshaun. He doesn't rely on his top end speed the same way. But I think that's there. I think there's elements, like Ron said, Steve Smith, and Steve Smith's one of my favorite players of all time. There is an element of that, and that he plays bigger than his size would indicate, right? Like, and so again, like, is he Steve Smith? No. Is he Deshaun Jackson? No. But are there qualities that maybe inform your evaluation of Jahan? Yes. And again, just the route running nuance was so high. The level was so high for him. Like, I was really impressed, and his ability to kind of play games with Kendall Fuller, play games with William Jackson III, I think just speaks to the kind of pro that you got. I'm excited to see what he does during training camp.
Right. So you guys heard it here first. Logan says that Jahan Dotson is a perfect combination of Steve Smith and Deshaun Jackson.
I can't wait for Logan Paulsen to get that Jahan Dotson jersey, #1 Commander.
I'm excited, man. Yeah, like, I'm really excited about him, and I really have to hedge that stuff because I want to say, yeah, Jahan looked freaking awesome. Like, I'm super excited. But when I say that, it ends up on Twitter somewhere, and then I'm like getting all these DMs about it. I'm like, well, like, in reality, like, you have to hedge everything. Right. Which is kind of annoying, but you guys get it. You guys know the game.
Yeah, I got you. And then Logan, last one for you. Warren Sapp was at minicamp last week. Any reactions from it? Did you get any insight into his little brief stay in Ashburn?
Yeah, I think the thing about some of those old guys that come is they're not always up to date on like the current techniques. They kind of say, "Oh, back in my day, I played like this." But the one thing about Warren Sapp that I really appreciated was that he kind of said, like, he was like teaching the guys how to work together as a pack of rushers, as opposed to winning individually. And I think that is something that, is incredibly important, because I did a defensive revisit. So 2 weeks ago, Chase and Montez, and I talked about that on my podcast, which is the Take Command podcast. And one of the things that came out of that was just like how often they kind of, Chase specifically is kind of doing his own thing, and how that affects the rest of the rush. So if all those guys can kind of buy in together, rush as a four group as opposed to the one guy trying to win one-on-ones, I think that's just going to totally elevate them. And again, I think that's great insight from a guy who's going to, who's one of the best defensive pass rushers of all time. So
of all time, absolutely.
Hey, Logan, are you boxing Floyd Mayweather? That was Logan Paul.
Logan Paul, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Never. I'm sorry, wrong person. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We get confused all the time. I went to a camp once, and this little kid, they said, "Oh, Logan Paulsen's here," and the kid's like, "Logan."
Oh my God!
And he came up, he's like, "Whatever," and I'm like, "No, leave me alone."
No, that wasn't me, bro. All right, Logan, I can't thank you enough for joining us again, brother, in such short notice. Make sure you guys go and check out Logan Paulsen on Instagram at Logan_Paulsen82 for the best film breakdowns in the business. Logan, I can't thank you enough, brother.
Podcast.
And the Take Command
Mike.
podcast.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on. Always a pleasure, boys.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. I'll catch
Pleasure's
you on the next
all
show,
mine.
brother.
Take
Thank
it
you,
easy,
Logan. All right, we just spoke with Mike Reed's best friend, Mr. Logan Paulsen.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
He's pretty cool. He's all right. So, yeah, I'm down here, and obviously my backdrop is different than usual. I have the jerseys behind me. I'm down here in Myrtle Beach, and before we get joined by our next guest here, I kind of wanted to talk to you about the shenanigans of yesterday of coming down here.
How was that?
It was a nightmare. We left at like 5 in the morning, and we ended up getting here at 5 at night. And it's only a 6-hour drive, which kind of sheds light into the situation. But essentially what happened was we were distanced from the in-laws who were in a van, and we were driving down the highway. We got to North Carolina, and so we had got something to eat. We stopped at a Hardee's, dude. And Hardee's breakfast is awesome. By
Hardee's really underrated. Yeah, Hardee's is good.
Dude, so good. I got their country fried steak sandwich. Oh, it's perfect. So we left there. We started driving down the highway, and we're behind one of those like wide load trailers. You know, obviously they have like an escort in front of them. We all get stuck behind them. Well, something flew off apparently and like hit our car and went underneath the car. I didn't see it. I didn't know.
Final Destination style?
Kind of, essentially, yeah.
That was literally the first thing I thought of.
I could feel it, right? I could hear it. I could feel it go underneath the car. Well, at the same time, I can see on my wife's, because my wife drives, because she gets vertigo if she's sitting in the passenger seat in the back seat. So I sit with Cash in the back. And I could see it come on the dash. It says like engine powering down. And so it does a thing what happened to my Ford where you get literally like 30% of the motor capability at that point. And so we're going like 50 miles an hour. She wants to get off on the side of 95. And I was like, no, Catherine, do not do that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like, please take the next
that's
exit.
scary.
So we take the next exit. She calls her mom. Her mom actually happens to be at the gas station at that next exit.
Whoa.
So we just like drive up with her right there. And so we start looking at the car. Like everyone's saying, pop the hood, pop the hood. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, we could all look at this thing for 3 hours and we would have no idea what is happening. It just needs a computer reset. Okay, that's basically what it is. And so we unloaded everything from the car. We put it down. We got a tow truck. We called insurance. Insurance had a tow truck guy come out and get the car. He's like, look, I got a shop down the street. We'll take it too. It's like, all right, Customs 305, by the way. They're awesome people. So they take the car. In the meantime, we're trying to find a rental. And Katie and her mom cannot find a rental anywhere. Insurance
it's next to impossible these days. Like ever since COVID, it's
insane. And so we could not find a rental. So literally, we were just standing at a gas station with all of our luggage out in the middle of the random 90-degree weather in North Carolina
with a 1-year-old.
Right, and we're just standing there waiting for, hoping that the guy can fix the car. Because if he can't fix the car, we're kind of screwed. We have nowhere to go. Her family's sitting there with us. We're all just hanging out. And so finally, we get a rental car. So they drive to go get the rental car, Katie and her mom. Come to find out, the manager's telling them that they're closed. And he's like, no, we're closed. And Katie's mom was like, nope, we're coming in. And so they get in, and then at that moment is when they get a call from the shop saying that they were able to fix the car.
Oh,
so
thank God.
They drive back, they get the car, they come back to us. Not kidding you, dude. We start loading it back in. We realize that we put all the luggage on an anthill. Red ants were covered in Cash's car seat.
Oh,
and
no.
Dude, so we had to sit there with like the vacuum.
I would have killed one of those ants if they bit my son. Ooh.
So we literally had to sit there on top of everything, sit there and get all the ants off everything before we left. But we finally got down here.
I would have dropped an M80 straight into that anthole. That's terrible. That's terrifying. Dude, red ants hurt too. The fire ants.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
I've been bit by one. Not tight. Yeah, me too.
Definitely hurts.
I got superpowers from one time. I became like a fire ant. Yeah, that's why I have this red tint to my whiteness all the time.
No, but those guys were actually awesome at 305 Customs because apparently they weren't even open, but they took us in just because.
Wow,
they were just,
it was an emergency.
Yeah, but Katie was saying how like her and her mom went out to go get the car, and it was at like somebody's house, like it was like a house garage. But it was like a business. The guy that owned the house,
did it.
Was business.
Yeah.
Hey, and he said they were just sitting around smoking cigarettes and stuff. And so that's great. So we got here yesterday. Yeah, we went down to the beach. We had fun. Went out to dinner last night. So Father's Day was fun. You know.
Only time I've ever been to Myrtle was for spring break, like senior year or something. I'm more of a Bethany kind of guy. That's where my family always goes. But yeah, I barely remember it. I was sloshed the entire time. It was creepy. Is it? Myrtle, I know it's a big name. Is it like there's like the boardwalk and stuff fun for kids and all that?
So the boardwalk here in Myrtle is not like it is for Ocean City. Like the Ocean City boardwalk is basically the go for. Like you're going for the bars or the boardwalk, essentially, if you have kids or not, right? With Myrtle, it's more of the actual beach atmosphere. They have a boardwalk and everything, but it's like everything is elevated, whereas like the beaches and what you have access to and everything. So I like to say Myrtle is more of like for the beach. Whereas Ocean City is more for where you're going to meet up with people.
Right. Yeah. Ocean City. Bethany's similar. Bethany's like you go there for like there's houses and stuff. It's not the boardwalk's terrible. Like there's no rides and stuff, but it's just shops. So it's like you just go down there to go to the beach. So feel that.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And it's been a great time. It's absolute beautiful weather down here. there's like a swim up pool bar here, multiple jacuzzis. It's just an awesome time.
There's
I'm
a
so
Russian DJ down there named DJ Blu-ray.
No, but
DJ Blu-ray.
there is a DJ down there.
And he says,
I'm sorry if you guys can hear that right now. By the way,
he says, yes, I'm #1 DJ in all of world, number
Yes,
one.
and now
Yes, and you're Lenny Laserdisc.
we'll be
I'm
joined
DJ
by our
Blu-ray.
next guest at any point in time. Now we're only minutes away from it, but our next question is from the Colonel. Let's go to our fan questions. And he texted us in. Are we really going to cut Jarrett Patterson? Reed.
Yes. I don't think so. I just think that the running back room could be so crowded where he may end up just being a casualty. I don't think so though. I think especially if he proves that he can like return kicks or something again, like he did last preseason, I think he'll make the roster. It's just if you look at the numbers game, I mean, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Brian Robinson, and depending on how many tight ends they keep, we know that that's a loaded position. I could see him being a camp casualty, but I really don't think he will be,
No,
I think there's other people more likely.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. Jarrett Patterson was sort of productive in his time that he was the starter for Washington last season. And then obviously the special teams aspect brought onto it because they don't have DeAndre Carter. So that still is a big question that we all want the answer to, and we're excited to figure out in training camp who's going to win that job. But that opportunity, that option that Jarrett Patterson offers is what limits his ability of being cut. And so I don't think he's going to be cut, Colonel, but if it did happen, that would mean that Brian Robinson, J.D. McKissick, and then not Peyton Barber, the other guy, I forget his name. I'm so sorry, dude. But the fourth running back blowing up, and I highly doubt that that's going to happen, essentially. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you guys. I definitely think that it's one of those things where like if he got cut, you wouldn't be surprised because like Reed said, of the numbers game. But at the same time, if he like made the practice squad, you also wouldn't be surprised because of a numbers game. And obviously, you want to maybe keep a fourth guy around just because maybe injuries. Right. Obviously, AG's been nicked up for the first 2 years of his career.
He knows
he's played through. Yeah, he's playing through it. But at the end of the day, obviously, running back is one of the most physical, pounding positions on the field. So you gotta have guys on the reserve and like on the practice squad. So, like I said, if he gets cut, I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he was a practice squad guy as well.
I'm right there with you now. Our next question is from our guy Mike Puckett, who texted me this earlier, and this is a great question, Hall. I'm going to go to you first. If Wentz doesn't pan out, we are 3-8, and Week 12, Ron wants to switch QBs. Who would start, Taylor Heinicke or Howe? And I want to make sure you guys know this. The games that he would play in that time would be the Falcons, the Giants twice, the 49ers, Browns, and Cowboys.
I would probably say 99% of the time it's going to be Sam Howell just because they've already seen what Taylor Heinicke can do last year. You want to see what the young rookie can do. Obviously, I'm not going to say Ron's on the hot seat, but obviously, like if Sam Howell closes out the season 3 or 4 wins out of those last couple games, you can go to Dan Snyder or whoever's the owner at that time, depending on what happens. But you can go to whoever and be like, hey, we can build off of what Sam did last year, maybe give me a little bit of leeway to kind of coach him up more, see what we can get out of him. But, yeah, I don't really see them going into Taylor Heinicke. The only path to that would be if it was another year like 2020 where the division is horrible. Maybe we're only like 1 or 2 games back of the division, which, again, would be crazy with 3 wins. But, yeah, it's just that's the only situation I can see Heinicke being in the game is in that situation where the division's still close and somehow possibly he gives us the best chance to make a run. But again, I don't see 2020 ever happening again anytime soon. So
I think it's Heinicke, to be straight up with you. We've seen this before. Look, they had Kyle Allen on the roster who they brought here, they traded for, they had prior experience with. They signed Heinicke off the street and they gave him the nod over Kyle Allen. And I know that they have a lot of confidence in Taylor Heinicke, and I do think that Taylor Heinicke is the kind of perfect backup that you would want because as a spot starter, you kind of can see that he's used to coming in and adjusting right away, right? And that's the kind of guy that you want, the Doug Flutie aspect to it, and that's why I like Taylor Heinicke. Like, as a starter, I like him, but as a backup, I love him. And there's no telling that by this time, week 10, week 12, that Sam Howell will be up and running. I think Ron Rivera really does covet the veteran leadership leadership of players, and that's why I think he would give the nod to Taylor Heinicke. I'm not sure if Sam Howell would be able to progress by sitting on the sideline for 10, 12 weeks to be able to come in and start in the NFL. I think there's a reason why he fell to the 5th, and based on his body type, I would rather go with Taylor Heinicke. I understand what that would limit with the game plan, and I understand what you're saying, Hall. Just for me personally, the mental aspect of the game and being able to compete at that level, we already know that with Heinicke. So as a spot start, I'd rather go with Heinicke. But we are now joined by our next guest, Mr. George Carmi of the Full Press Coverage Podcast. Thank you for joining us, George. How are you doing?
Fellas, what's going on, man? How you guys doing today?
It's been a long time, George. Where have you been all my life?
I don't know, man. It's been around. What's up with you guys? Are you doing all right?
Yeah, he's been over at
living the
FedEx
dream.
Field talking to Jason Wright and stuff, man. Just always busy as a season ticket holder. But we had a question from Mike Puckett, George. I want to go to you with this. If Wentz doesn't pan out and we are 3-8 in Week 12, Ron wants to switch quarterbacks, who would you start, Taylor Heinicke or Sam Howell?
So I saw what you said when I first walked in, right? So honestly, I think I might go Sam Howell. I know you said Taylor Heinicke. If it's a spot start, if it's like, someone's injured and we're in the playoff push, maybe put Heinicke in there. But the season's over. You kind of have to see what Sam Howell has because you don't know what's going to happen in regard to the future moving forward, right? Where is that 3-8? Is Carson Wentz, did he completely fall on his face? Was he injured again? You don't really know if he's going to have a long-term potential. So I do like putting Sam Howell in to kind of get like 6 games to kind of see what his production would be and then kind of reevaluating where we're at in regard to next year's draft. If we're 3-8, that means we're like looking at a top 5, top 2 pick. So, maybe give Sam Howell a shot. If he isn't really there, then, look at, draft someone top 5, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Those last 6 games, I mean, I'm telling you, I think if Heinicke comes in, because you're 3-8 and you win the last 6, that puts you at 9-8, right? You're in the playoffs. That's why I would go down that route. But I understand the aspect of basically getting the future chips in, right? Because he's the future aspect of it. I totally and wholeheartedly understand that. I do. I'm not sure if he's going to be ready at that point. But what do you think, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, I could see both sides. It really depends on how Sam Howell looks. Like if he can go out there and he can look completely lost in preseason and leading up. If he does, then there's really no point because if he's not ready, he's just not ready. But if he does, hey, if he flashes a little bit or he goes out there, he does some good things, and they really just want to see what they have in him, then 100%. But if not, I say you just keep with Taylor Heinicke, and if you keep losing, then you go in there and you say, hey, Bryce Young, come here real fast. And
one thing I will add though to your point, like you can rattle off 6 straight, 9 wins, whatever you're in the playoffs. At that point, you're 3-8. I mean, obviously, you're not really looking towards next year, but aren't you kind of just like, all right, let's just let the bottom fall out, see where we land as far as the draft pick goes, and then find that guy. You already know what you have in Taylor.
It depends on what the media is saying around here about Ron.
Do you know how many
I know that. I'm just saying, but you already know what you have in Taylor Heinicke, so it's kind of like you're not really moving forward. You're just kind of.
But what if Howell just
stuck where we always been? But like we know we have in a quarterback. Why not?
What if Howell just looks completely lost though?
Yeah.
If Heinicke can run it out 6 straight wins, then he's talking about starting for the next year, right?
That's the place where I don't want to be at. Exactly.
Then we're all pissed.
And that's what my point is essentially with Taylor Heinicke. The one other aspect argument you could say is maybe you would want Taylor Heinicke to start that last 6 to see if he's worth anything. And I know that he's not under contract for next year, but possibly as a trade asset. A team
he's still young in terms of playing time.
Starter that came in and won 6 straight. You guys are going to be drafting early, high in the draft anyway to get your replacement. Why don't you trade us Taylor Heinicke? So I do understand that aspect of it. But I did want to say before we get out of here, Puckett did write, I would start Hal. I think he's more a part of our future than Taylor Heinicke and would be a good chance to see what you got after sitting behind and learning all of season and 11 weeks of the season. So you guys are in accordance with Mike Puckett. I just wanted to be different. And also, I'm a big Taylor Heinicke guy, of course, man. I can't really run from it. But the next question that we have, George, I'm going to go to you with this. Andy Lockhart in the Discord chat server, in the UK.
Oi.
Why is Dan Snyder still declining that meeting? He could show himself in a good light for a change, but instead he hides behind his lawyers. The guy's a weasel, he says.
All right, Andy. What's up, Andy? By the way, I talk to him all the time on Twitter. I think Dan Snyder, he's renowned for being a weak public speaker. He's afraid to be on a spotlight. He's afraid to be in front of a crowd. And nothing is more terrifying than being, on trial and being a witness, being surveyed and being questioned. So
especially
even if he is
serious.
some serious stuff.
Right.
Exactly, right? And like, you know how it is. And basically, he could be completely in the right. He could have the facts to back it up, but just stumbling upon your words, being caught up in the court would definitely put him in a compromised situation. So if he isn't required to be there, if he isn't subpoenaed to be in court, then I think it's a smart strategy to stay out of it. Why would you willingly go into court and be subjected to that? It's going to be interesting to see if Roger Goodell walks in and kind of takes over the chair, because Roger Goodell is basically taking blows for Dan Snyder. If Dan won't go and Roger goes in and has to answer all those questions, that's not an enviable position to be in. So, how long can Goodell put up with Snyder if this is the case? So we'll see what's up.
Yeah, I agree with you in that breath. All I'll say is, Roger Goodell works for the owners, right? And so essentially you could say this is a business trip. Essentially, this is what he is there for, as the shield for the owners. This is what he's there for. But Andy, I'm not, like George put it perfectly, because Dan Snyder doesn't have anything to gain from this committee. They have already shown that they look at him in a negative light. They already find him guilty in their eyes. And so what does he gain by going there? Only thing that will happen from that is the media will be able to have new words to twist, to be able to have new articles out, and just have more bad stuff pile on him. So why would he even go for that? Roger Goodell, on the other hand, would be accepted by the committee because they want Roger Goodell, throw him under the bus. So Roger Goodell's not just going to be able to say plead the fifth on stuff that's anything incriminating of Dan. He's going to answer questions. It's another day for him. But that's why Dan's not going. He has more to lose than he does to gain by going to these committees. What do you think, Hall?
Jump in one bit. Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead, George. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is, like, the Snyder is so polarizing. If you guys remember when, like, Tanya Snyder set up a specific interview with Adam Schefter, she had it in the most, like, ideal circumstances for her. She wanted to sit there with someone that she knew, that she felt comfortable with, and had rehearsed questions that went along with it. And the media still, like, jumped on her every word and twisted her every word. Yeah. It isn't ideal. If you're the Snyders, they're kind of in the show, because whenever you go out, you get hammered for whatever you do. So it is kind of a losing situation. So I can see where they're at over there.
Yeah, I'm in lock and step with what you said, Kyle and George, what you guys both said. Like, I look at it as, like, what good is going to come of it? Not as far as, like, what good is going to come of him and, like, the whole situation. I know the whole accountability side of it. People want to know what happened, and people want it out in the public. But at the end of the day, like you said, Kyle, he's already vilified, and everyone hates him in the public eye anyway. So, like, him just going there is not going to it's not going to change anyone's view of him. It's actually going to probably make people look at him even worse. Right. Now it's going to be really out there for the whole public to kind of know what went on and what happened. And like you said, the media is going to run with it. It's just going to be a bunch of negative stuff for 6 weeks straight, all the way up to training camp. Then it'll be all through training camp until the season starts. So do we really want another 2 months of negative story when we're trying to move forward as an organization and a culture? So like I said on Twitter earlier, like the whole accountability side of it, I do get that. And if he gets subpoenaed, like you say, he's just going to plead the fifth. He's not going to really answer the questions anyway. So at the end of the day, it's doing nothing positive for the team, except as far as moving forward with like the whole new culture and kind of trying to get away from the past. You're just bringing the past back up again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah, and the one thing I will add before you go, Reed, is this committee, like, you guys can have whatever opinions you want about the committee. All I'll say is they found out from the witness, what was it, back in February or March? I think it was around the rebrand announcement, right, that committee had the witness in. Why wasn't a meeting scheduled around that time? How come it was pushed to the point where in the middle of summer, because is the goal to be able to get the committee meeting around the same time that the stadium bill is going to be pushed through? Or is it more based on them trying to find the truth? Or is it to prolong this issue as long as possible to drain out Dan Snyder and the stadium bill? I'll let you decide that. But what do you think, Reed?
Right. Well, also, I mean, we just saw, I know it's a completely different situation, but we just saw one of the biggest court cases of all time with Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. And as like George talked about, you saw with Amber Heard, like just because she went up there and she looked bad, like the way she was saying things, her facial expressions, the way she was moving, it completely swayed that jury's opinion on a lot of things. So I think that I mean, maybe they see something like that and they're like, Snyder's not the best public talker. He's going to dig himself in a hole no matter what he says, just with what he does.
We've
And
had a
stay
bad
away
enough
from
week with public
Right,
speaking.
yeah.
Let's make sure you
Yeah.
don't go up in front of the microphone.
Right.
I will say though, I hope that I hope something negative does come out, because that means a Terry McLaurin contract's coming right down the pipeline. So one negative story for a great positive thing, I'll take that.
I'll take that.
That's what I thought was going to happen with this committee. Is I thought that right after the committee is when they were going to announce Terry to kind of throw that over it. But maybe I'm wrong about that. But our next question in the Discord chat server is from Digital Guru George. He says, you know how Daron Payne is in his 5th year on his rookie deal this season. Well, why not use a transition tag and not the franchise tag? The transition tag would allow him to shop his services to any team, then he could sign a contract with that team. However, the Commanders would have the right of first refusal, meaning they could match any deal he comes back with. Not enough teams use this method because it shows how the rest of the league sees your player. The only problem is that you get no compensation in a transition tag that you decline to match.
Yes, that's an interesting one, right? I think there is a human element to contracts as well in regard to like respecting people and taking care of them. Granted, you want to treat, just being open, you want to treat Daron Payne as an employee or a commodity. You want to basically, have him under contract. But at the same time, that's bad business, in my opinion, across the board, right? If you're going to transition tag without the intention of keeping him long term, it's going to detract you from getting free agents down the road. People aren't going to want to resign here. They feel disrespected. So I kind of feel it's kind of like dangling him. If you're not negotiating in good faith, it's a bad investment. What I do like though is it's kind of my eyes are open with this. The team likes Daron Payne. They want Daron Payne long term. However, it's just money and like asset allocation, right? With our defensive line, with our edge rushers, how can you afford all of them? The one out and the one thing that everybody wants to happen is for Carson Wentz to do very well. If he comes out and thrives and does very well, and he is our franchise quarterback, his contract has no more guaranteed money. So what you can do is you can extend him. You can basically renegotiate his contract and front load him and loosen up some salary cap space down the road. Like, no one's really talking about that. Yep. You can still get Daron Payne down the road if you really are like mindful and purposeful with it. So the doors aren't closed, but I don't necessarily agree with the transition tag because I feel like the human element, you're going to basically piss him off and piss other people in the locker room off. So I'm not really a big fan of that.
And I'm not sure if on the transition tag, the player can be traded. I know with the franchise tag, you can still trade that player during that process. I'm not sure. Maybe that's one of the downsides to transition tag is that you're not able to trade that person. And I do agree with you to that breath. I don't want to use the tag at all, to be perfectly honest with you. I know, especially with the DL group, I think the DL group is probably be the better one that you'd want to do that because it's for a player that is a top 5 player at that position, but you don't know how much to pay them because you don't want to pay the number $1 amount, but you'd rather pay the mixture, like Devontae Adams. That's a perfect scenario for the franchise tag, right? Because he should get number 1 wide receiver money. And they said, okay, no, we'd rather do the franchise tag because it's the average of that, and it's not the total amount, but we get it for 1 year. I'm not for the tags, to be perfectly honest. I'd rather have Daron Payne be able to go their separate ways because this is a growing process in the NFL. Good teams grow out of their players. This happens. You have to be able to replenish that, and that's what Fedarian Mathis is for. I love Daron Payne. I loved his press conference last week. I'd love to see him back here. But the fact of the matter is he has to take a team-friendly deal, and I'm not going to tell a grown man to do that. What do you think, Paul?
And you guys may know better than me, sorry to interrupt, but if we're going to give him a transition tag, I don't know if that affects the franchise tag. So let's say everything falls apart with Terry McLaurin. Can you give a transition tag and a franchise tag? I'm not exactly sure how that works. Yeah. I think you maybe only have to do one, so I have no idea.
Right.
You have no idea.
Definitely. I mean, George pretty much hit on all the points I was gonna make as far as the whole Carson Wentz thing, and if.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
It
happens once an episode.
I'm sorry, Hall.
But real fast, the franchise tag, I get it, and but we have such a bad history with franchise tags that I've kind of soured on it, so I'm willing to try anything. But no, I completely understand why teams don't do the transition tag. Like George said, you kind of got to respect your employees. If you're going out there being like, hey, we really don't know what to pay you, so we're going to see what these guys are going to pay you, and then maybe we'll offer to you if we think you're worth that. That's kind of just no, why are you going to do that to me? That's rude. So I get it.
All right, Hall, are you back yet?
Yeah.
Right,
pretty much like I was saying.
Now let's go to our next question. Right. Tony Shivers, what player are you getting for your next jersey?
Oh, that's a good question.
And which jersey? Like the white, the black, burgundy? What are you doing?
I'm not gonna lie. I think my first jersey is gonna be the all burgundy, and I'm gonna have to go with the Han Solo, Jahan Dotson, number one. I mean, that's just always, ever since they said he was gonna be rocking the number one. Obviously, I knew what the jerseys are gonna look like. Just to me, that was like that's gonna be the cleanest of like all the burgundy jerseys. So, and I'm a wide receiver guy. I love the wide receiver, so got to go with my man Dotson most likely.
Yeah, Tony, for me, it's going to be Cam Curl. That's my dude right there. And I'm going to try to get it in either the white or black jersey, whatever comes available first. Nobody knows what's going on. We're blaming China. We don't know about manufacturing. Is it here? Is it there? I don't know. It's not here.
People are blaming Jason Wright, even though he had nothing to do with it.
Right.
The snake Jason Wright, right? That was so funny, my goodness. But for me, it's Cam Curl. What about you, George? Who's your first jersey?
So I'm an idiot, man. I'm gonna throw a lot of money at these jerseys when they first come out. So I have one for every color, right?
That's what
so
I did.
basically,
Yep.
100%. So regardless of when they come out, I'm gonna get a burgundy Jonathan Allen. That's what I wanted to get. I want to get a black Terry McLaurin 17. I want to get a white Jahan Dotson is what I want to do. I think it's kind of the way to go and all that. So I'm pumped about it.
Yeah, you're right. All the jerseys almost like they look better. Like this one's a cheap knockoff from China. But like when you look at for whatever reason, I think that like Carson Wentz or Jahan Dotson look really good in white. Those jerseys, I think by themselves, like the one, I don't know what it is. I think that they both look good. Terry, I think, and Jonathan Allen both look good, and Antonio Gibson looked fantastic with the black jerseys. And then the all burgundy one, I think you can really just go with whoever. So Cam Curl, I think, would be another one of those. So
yeah, it's a good jersey choice for sure.
Absolutely. Now our next question is from Jeff Miles. Who scores the first regular season touchdown as a Commander? What are we, George?
I think it's going to be Antonio Gibson, man. That's kind of the history for Washington. We always kind of run it in. We don't really have a high-powered passing offense when I drive down the field, and AD's going to run in with a little smile up there over there. So I see that coming up.
My man, I love that. The first touchdown as a Commander, I'll say it's Carson Wentz as a play-action rollout, rolls up and rolls into the end zone. I think that, like you alluded to it before, about having Carson having a good year and what that would mean with future contracts. Because essentially, I mean, people coming back, more cash in their wallets to be able to spend on those sort of contracts and stuff like that. Carson Wentz, first touchdown of the season as a Commander. That is a marketing strategy they can really use and push. I think it's Carson. What about you, Hall?
Yeah. I think it's going to be Curtis Samuel on a catch, like intermediate to short.
Yep, there he goes again. Number 2.
Samuel, no.
I'm gonna go with this one just because I think it would be appropriate. I'm gonna say Jahan Dotson. Remember Terry's rookie year when he caught that deep pass touchdown against the Dolphins to start things off?
Samuel and just like started.
Yeah, I started stealing it. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Jahan Dotson. That's because the other two more established wide receivers are gonna roll some of the coverages that way. Wentz is gonna go deep to the first ever draft pick. He's gonna score the first ever touchdown as a Washington Commander.
Classic. I like it.
That would be
internet
ideal.
won't let me be great. Damn.
Yeah.
Finish it, Hall.
Yeah,
Finish it.
Yeah, it's your internet. Yeah.
Now, I think it's gonna be a Curtis Samuel on like a 20-yard dig route or something like that. It's gonna be a catch and run. He's gonna take it up the sideline, and people are gonna be like on his nuts on Twitter, and it's gonna be like so funny because the same people that were dogging him all last year are gonna be on his nuts after he goes 70 yards down the sideline for a touchdown.
Absolutely, I love to hear that.
Now Kyle's out.
Kyle's out.
George, our next question.
All right, there you go.
George, our next question is from Liam on Twitter. Where do you think the widespread dislike of Wentz is coming from? Irsay's comments, the meltdown in Jacksonville? Because he was ranked significantly higher going into last season, and even Taylor Heineke wasn't this low last year.
I think it's 2 reasons, right? I think for one, just being a Philadelphia Eagle and being a savior of the Eagles definitely has that little stink to it, right? So basically, we kind of see them. We were all kind of rooting for his demise, and we kind of were happy when he wasn't very successful in Philadelphia. So coming back around kind of feels like used goods coming back down to DC. So we're really keen on that. And what was the other aspect? I think also oh man, I had something else that slipped my mind, so I'll come back in a second. But yeah, I think that was the major reason why. Oh, sorry, I got it now. The Russell Wilson whiff. We wanted Russell Wilson, and then basically, that was like a Monday or something like that. Then we basically whiffed on him, and Wednesday we got Wentz. So back to back, those are 2 little shots to the face. So we have to keen on it.
Yeah, so when Liam says widespread dislike, I guess he essentially means like nationals perspective.
Oh, okay.
Because like the NFL Game Day came out with their quarterback rankings and had Wentz at 30th and had guys like Justin Fields ahead of him, which is just a ridiculous list. They're just looking to piss you off, right? But where does the widespread dislike of Wentz come from? I think it comes from the fact that he was injured for that Super Bowl run. Nick Foles came in, BDN, like we all like to say with Nick. And so he kind of took that over as like the head honcho, right? And then Carson had the bad going out. And so it's essentially like Carson is like getting the Josh Rosen treatment, essentially, in a way you could say. And that's why I think the dislike comes from, where the national media perspective is basically saying, like, he has to prove it to us because he hasn't done anything substantial since that Super Bowl run that he was not there for, if that makes sense. That's just my belief. What do you think, Reed?
Yeah, it's a combination of things, like you said. I think it was the bad exit in Philly, as you said, being the number 2 overall pick and having an MVP caliber season, then kind of falling out of favor and letting a second round pick come and take your job. I think kind of rubbed people wrong with the injuries and all that. Then going to the Colts and fizzling out at the end of the year, and then of course Jimmer saying Chris Ballard not being able to keep his name out of their mouth. I think that just has a lot to do with it, and people just think that he's a bad teammate when who knows.
Anything, Hall?
Yeah, I just think it's all that you guys said. I think also, obviously, the last time people saw him on the field was against Jacksonville. And, I mean, he'll tell you, like Carson Wentz will tell you straight up, he was horrible in that game. But so was the rest of the team. But, obviously, the quarterback gets the praise when they win, and he gets the blunt of the blows when they lose. So that's all part of it. And then, obviously, with everything going on in Washington and, like, all the off-the-field stuff, it just seemed like there's always, like, something going on with this team. So I just feel like people always think that whatever decision this team makes is always the worst one. It's always the wrong one. It's always the bad one. So Carson Wentz gets lumped in. Already having a little bit of stink on him. He just gets that Washington just stink piled on top of him. Now he's got flies all around him, stuff like that. So, I mean, all you can do is go out and show and prove at the end of the day. So
Right. It could be worse. It could be like Deshaun Watson, where like the worst thing about him is that he kills stray cats, I heard.
Now, let's go to Twitter to wrap this up, this episode, guys. Let's go rapid fire. This question from Commander OC Orange Crush 92. George, what's the first horror movie you ever saw that scared the bejesus out of you? Have any horror movies since then taken the cake?
Oh man, so it's funny. I'm kind of a wuss. I don't like horror movies, to be honest with you. And the one that ruined it for me was The Ring. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
That creepy girl went down the sewer and she basically would come at it, dude. I saw that and that was it, dude. Like I grew up watching Friday the 13th. They were good movies, but The Ring messed it all up for me. Can't watch it anymore. Took the cake.
For me, I think it would have to be Jeepers Creepers, the first one. Like being with my cousins and stuff like that always tripped me the heck out. But as like a kid, there was some movie, it was like 9 Scary Stories or something like that. Like I distinctly remember there was one where it was like a monster under, like in this box that was like chained under a stairwell that like ate people and stuff. That freaked me the heck out. But recently, I couldn't really tell you recently, besides Jeepers Creepers, just the whole, like him driving up in the truck and doing crazy stuff in the truck and then looking at him as he's driving by. Like as a kid, that just sent shivers up my spine, man. I was scared. What about you, Hall?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I watched Candyman, and that like scarred me for life. That was with and ever since then, there's not really been like a movie I've been like scared me or like shook me, nothing like that. But I remember distinctly being like really, really young watching Candyman. Shouldn't even be able to watch it. My parents let me watch it anyway. But I just remember that was the one that really like cut me deep.
Yeah. So we said horror movie, Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson. Oh no, horror. I'm sorry, horror movie. Kazam.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Remember Kazam? Have you ever seen Shaq act? No, I'm just kidding. No, old ones. When I was a kid, The Exorcist always messed me up. But the new ones, seriously, the most disturbing one I've seen lately is Hereditary. Have you seen that? And the ending scenes where the mom is like levitating up on the attic, and you hear this banging real loud on the attic door, and then it pans to the mom, and she's just for some reason. She's just banging her head really fast on the attic door, and it's just creepy as hell. And it's just there's something about that disturbs everybody who watches it. That part of the movie.
That was disturbing to hear, dude.
Yeah, dude, it's the creepiest looking thing ever.
Now this next question is from Paul Murphy. Reed, having watched the final round of the golf last night, which current Washington player reminds you the most of Matt Fitzpatrick? With his disciplined and focused mindset, his dedication making small improvements every day, and his consistent play.
Well, as somebody who doesn't watch golf because I watch real sports, not trying to be the best at hitting the ball somewhere. I don't know. I don't watch golf.
I'm playing golf tomorrow.
I love
Can't
playing
wait,
golf. Playing golf's awesome, but I'm not 80 yet, so I don't watch it. So.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love to play golf. I don't like watching it yet.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a player, I guess like either John Allen or Terry McLaurin.
Yep.
Just because they're like the model of consistency for this team. But like you guys said, I like to play golf. I don't really I'm not at the stage of like watching it yet. Hopefully, I'll never get to that stage.
I'll say Logan Thomas, Paul, just because obviously him being a former quarterback, having to make the change in the.
You said what kind of car do I drive?
What do I drive?
No, golf. Your golf drive. Yeah, I will say Logan, just because
the hint was we were talking about golf for 5 minutes
from quarterback to tight end. It takes a lot of dedication to be able to make those adjustments, and also helping the young guys like John Bates. I think it's Logan Thomas, obviously making those small improvements every single day. Logan Thomas. You have anybody in mind, George?
I think Mike nailed it. John Allen and Terry McLaurin, in my opinion.
My man. Now, this next question is from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! George, who are your early offensive and defensive MVP and offensive and defensive rookie of the year for the Commander predictions?
Offensive and defensive MVP and rookie of the year. Shoosh. That's a heavy one. So, offensive rookie of the year. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, offensive player of the year. Wow. Let's think outside the box. The easy one is Terry McLaurin, but I'm gonna go with Carson Wentz, man. I'm gonna ride with him. I'm gonna see if I think he's gonna play pretty well this year. He's gonna be something that we haven't seen in Washington for a very long time. He's gonna have that strong arm. He's gonna throw for maybe 4,000 yards, something like that. We'll see how that goes. I'm kind of looking forward to that. If he plays well, our season will go well. So I'm going with that. Offensive rookie of the year, it's a pretty easy one. I think Jahan Dotson is going to be eaten up in the slot. I think he's going to be an immediate player off the break. He's going to get 40, 50 catches this year, 600 yards, something along the lines of that. I'm pretty excited about him. Defense, let me try to think. I love Montez Sweat, man. That's my guy. I'm always going to root for him. I like Montez Sweat a lot. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. He had a broken jaw last year. His brother passed away last year. Yeah. A lot of he has a tough social and work life last year. So hopefully he'll bounce back. I can see that going. And then rookies. I mean, there's only one rookie to root for, right? Percy Butler. That's Phil Mathis, but I would say Percy Butler, man. I think he's going to play a good role. I think he'll be there and he'll probably he's going to cover the solid before us. So those are my 4 picks.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's going to take that Buffalo nickel role. They talked about him playing in the post a lot and that defensive holding up the quarters there, and I would really like to see that. Now, the early offensive and defensive MVPs, I'll say most likely Antonio Gibson, just because of the way this offensive line is shaped. They're going to want to pound the football, then stretch the ball vertically. So I could see Antonio Gibson being able to get a bunch of touchdowns this season, because the one question we have about Scott Turner is he does really well in between the 20s, but the red zone is where we need to see the actual improvement, and I think running game translates into points. And so I think Antonio Gibson for MVP. And then defensive MVP, Cole Holcomb, the mullet, they've had his back from the marketing perspective, but a lot of stuff putting out, the PR staff putting out a lot about Cole. I think Cole could be a 100-plus tackle guy, maybe a bunch of tackle for losses, maybe even a Pro Bowl. You never know. So I think that's good there. And then Brian Robinson, I think, could be the offensive rookie of the year. I think Jahan Dotson's just too easy. But Brian Robinson being the pounder, I think you'd get a lot of touchdown opportunities there as well. Then defensive, I think you hit it perfectly, but I'll go with Fedarian Mathis. Anybody, guys?
Yeah, I'll go with a dark horse defensive MVP candidate, and I'm going to go with old Chase. I think Chase is going to have a bounce back year. I think he started to kind of hit his stride a little bit. I mean, it was short-lived, but kind of right before his injury last season, and that people forget how big of an impact that guy can make. I mean, everybody's kind of writing him off because he fell off last year, then got injured. But I expect big things from Chase. I really do. The guy's a freak of nature. He's the number 2 overall pick for a reason. And offensive MVP, I'll go with another dark horse here. Offensive rookie MVP, because I like what you guys have said so far. I'll just add to it. I could see Cole Turner coming up there and having a fantastic season, especially if Logan's injured early. You can get a lot of touches, kind of build some chemistry with Carson Wentz early and keep that rolling.
You know what's unfortunate about Chase Young that really, really sucks is that he got injured, in like a down year. But the thing, like his injury took him out for the rest of the season. So this whole offseason that everyone talking trash about him, like he doesn't have an opportunity to put it down, right? So like
I know,
it's a whole amount of time that he has to live with those comments. And obviously they're warranted, you could say, to an extent. But it's just those talks. It just sucks how long it's taking. Yeah. Anybody, Hall?
Yeah, I think defensive rookie of MVP rookie is going to be Mathis. I just think that with Chase Young when he gets back, Montez Sweat, Allen, and Payne around him, he's going to get a lot of single one-on-ones and be able to get to the quarterback. Offensive, obviously, I'm going to go with Dotson. I think, like George said, he's going to have a 40 to 50 catch year, go for like between 5 to like 600 to 700 yards and a couple touchdowns. Defensive MVP, I'm gonna say my man Cam Curl. I think this is the year where he gets that national. I think he gets that national recognition finally, other than my man Baldy's breakdowns, because he loves him some Cam Curl. But I think that outside of the DMV and like Washington Commanders fans, they're gonna know the name Cam Curl. And offensive MVP, I'll go Terry McLaurin. I think he gets the deal done. I think he comes out and he lives up to the contract, playing with a better quarterback. And I think that he'll have his highest touchdown total of his career this year.
So I hope so, dude. Transition those points. Could you imagine if we average like 24 points a game? What that would do for this city?
Man.
Oh my goodness, that would transition.
I don't even know what I would do because I haven't seen
so
that
much fun. Yeah, me neither.
I don't know what to do with my hands. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. George, I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. Obviously, you're one of the best Twitter follows out there on top of your analysis that you do for full press coverage and everything. It is a pleasure to have you on here and an honor to be able to have you as a guest here. But before we let you go, just in case there's anybody watching would like to come follow you either on social media or come follow your podcast, you like to plug your handles.
Thanks, brother. It's at Carmi21. So thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate you guys like family. It's always good to catch up with you guys. Also at FPC_Commanders and follow me on Full Press Commanders podcast and hit me up, guys. I'll be around.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your questions. We want to hear back from you guys. What do you guys think about what we discussed here today? We want to hear your answers. We'd love to hear from you. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Friday. I'm Kyle.
Follow me on Twitter. I've been at 565 followers for like 2 months. It's like starting to blow me. Please, someone follow me.
Okay.
I'm Hall.
TBZ Money Mike 301. You can find him on Twitter. Go follow.
I should probably plug the names so they can follow me.
That's like, put the money in my bank account, but then they don't have your bank account number.
Yes, and I'm DJ Blu-ray, #1 DJ in all of Russia.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Friday. Be safe. Have a great week. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!